Now, I'm with, a legend is the only way I can describe it, and I know you're going to wince when I say that, but you are a photographic legend. Don McCullin, how are you?
Old, actually, getting old.
We're all getting older, Don. Now, you're going to be talking today on the Super Stage, and I don't know whether you know this, but you are the only speaker over the 4 days who has sold every single seat. So there are 550 people, I believe, listening to you. So I don't want to put any pressure on you, but what I do want to know is, what are you going to be talking about today?
Do you know something? I never know until I get up there, and then I'll be, talking with images, pictures that we're going to project. So, I never really know until I'm there. I make it up as I go along. I mean, honestly, I don't invent anything. I don't need to invent anything, the life I've had. But I just get up there and I'll talk about, what it's like starting from nowhere as a young man. I didn't choose photography. I'm going to say, in a way, photography chose me, and then I'll explain to people, what it's like, picking your way through life as a photographer, and sometimes the opportunities that used to come to me and I'd grab with both hands, or I never really missed much. Basically it's about having really good eyes. And it's not about just seeing, it's about perception, really. You have to see before you have to know before you see.
No, absolutely. And you say that you didn't choose photography, it chose you. Now, you grew up in North London, I think, and I saw a story, I don't know whether it's true and you can confirm this. Did you have to sell your only camera as a young lad at one point, and then your mother went and bought it back?
No, what happened was I came out of the Air Force where I failed my trade test as a photographer.
Okay.
Because I couldn't read very well, and I have dyslexia. But
okay.
So I came out of the Air Force with this brand new Rolleicord camera, which I bought in Nairobi. I brought it from Nairobi back, and when I got back I thought, I don't really need this camera, so I pawned it. And my mother said you shouldn't have done that, and I got £5 for it. You see, I paid 30 for it, brand spanking new Rolleicord.
Well, £5 was a lot of money, I guess.
Yeah, £5 in those days was a week's wages to some, people of my kind of caliber. So my mother said, I'm going to get this camera. It's not right you've done that. She got the camera out, and then there was a bit of conflict in the neighborhood where I grew up. There was always conflict anyway, and mostly came in the shape of violence. In other words, I'm talking about gang warfare. And I photographed a gang of boys who were involved in a gang fight, but the other side, there was a member amongst them who knifed a policeman in the back and killed him at the bottom of my street where I grew up. So I started my career, you could say, on a violent note, really. And then from there it went on and on, becoming more and more terrible and violent.
So why do you think that you were drawn into that particular world and that particular way of working with your camera in those situations?
Well, I didn't have any choice, really. You grew up in a kind of dump where I grew up in North London. You had to fight for your kind of very bit of space and existence, and you were tested all the time by other young boys. And there was a lot of violence, a lot of fighting, and I'm lucky to have a face that hasn't got a kind of razor mark on it. So, but the boys I grew up with were rough and ready, and most of them wound up going to prison. That's the one thing about the photography. I'm grateful to say it saved me from going to an English prison. I've actually wound up in a prison in Africa, which is even worse, because you get a really good hiding to start with when you go in. So, I've had really quite a checkered past, really.
Sure. So, I mean, do you ever pinch yourself to think you've survived to have a career this long with all the situations that you've been in then?
I pinched myself because I thought, thank God that photography came along and gave me such an amazing life. I mean, it's not over yet. I'm still photographing. I'm 80 in a few months' time.
Look a day over 21, Don.
Oh, thank you. But my body is refusing now. Everything hurts and aches, and I've had injuries from shrapnel and broken bones and things, and it's all beginning to come home to roost now. So, my horizons are still quite a long way away in my mind, but I know I'm never going to reach them. The one I am going to reach is the day I die. I know that for a fact.
We all do that. The interesting thing, when I look at your images, the one thing that always strikes me, whatever situation you're in, how difficult that might be, is that you are you are so good at composition and reading the light. And is that really what it's all about for you? Because it's not about gear so much for you, is it?
No, I don't like photographic gear really. Of course, in the old days, I used to be quite inflammatory with silly statements in the old days, but I used to say I use a camera the way I use a toothbrush. Of course you can't take photographs without a camera, but you know, I think we mentioned pre to this conversation, it's about perception. You know, I would go away having all kinds of ideas, and then when I got there it wasn't the way I thought, but nevertheless, you know, I used to work myself up emotionally. The emotion and the perception, and then finally the composition and the light. I never took pictures without a light reading, especially in war. I mean, why would you be killed for getting a war picture that was underexposed?
Sure.
I used to jump up and take, you know, go down and jump up and get that reading right and then take the picture. So I'm quite professional, very dedicated, and I don't cut corners. And visually, I think most photographers I know, and mind you, I've got an amazing library in my house, probably better than most people, other than Martin Parr.
I was talking to Martin Parr here just yesterday.
Oh, were you? Well, I know he's got an astounding library, but I've got a good library, and I owe a lot of my composition to Henri Cartier-Bresson, you know, who was the very best.
The decisive moment, of course, was the phrase that he got in that, and that's really what you've done all your life, isn't it, with your photography?
We learn from each other, really. I mean, I've got books that go way back to the 1880s when photography was first discovered. I've learned from all the great masters. I'm still a student of photography. I'm still willing to learn, even at my age. You're never finished with learning, and the day you think you are, that's the day you've had it, really.
No, absolutely. And obviously, with the length of your career, how have you seen war photography change, and in fact war itself, how that's changed over, you know, where are we now with war photography and the connection and trying to get the images?
Well, you know, by reading the newspapers that going to war now, if you fall into the wrong hands, you're going to get murdered. But many of my friends were murdered before during the Khmer Rouge days in the Cambodian War. I might actually go to another war in a few months' time. I'm planning it now.
Really?
Yeah, but I mean, I won't be the fastest runner on the battlefield, but I'm going to go.
Where are you going to go?
It will be in Iraq. But I went to Aleppo 2 years ago, and I found it very difficult trying to run with all the gear and a bulletproof jacket and a helmet. You know, and you know, I've had a massive heart operation, so I am not the best runner in the world. I used to be.
Is it, you know, at the point you have to run, surely it's, you know, it's too late, isn't it? Anyway.
You can't outrun a bullet, that's for sure. But, you know, I still, if I give up thinking, and if I give up the desire to practice photography, I might as well go and dig my own grave somewhere.
Absolutely, and I know that, I mean, obviously you'll be talking a lot about the war photography and the conflict photography that you've done over your career, but you also love to take landscapes, I think.
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago I was standing on Hadrian's Wall in the snow, and it was absolutely fantastic. And then I drove 800 miles there in my car and came home. And then I got on an aeroplane a week later and went up to Inverness, and I had a car and went all the way down Loch Ness and did some landscape, of which I thought was wonderful at the time, and when I took it back and processed the film, it wasn't. I didn't like it, and only the other day, Friday actually, I tore up 12 sheets of paper that cost 20 quid a sheet, because I didn't think the prints were up to my usual standard.
So you're still predominantly shooting film then, but you have used digital.
I've got some lovely Canon cameras actually, and I'm going to take those cameras to Iraq if I can get the strip all fixed up. You know, they are amazing cameras. They will do extraordinary things that the black and white camera couldn't do, particularly when the light is fading. And you know, when the light went in the old days, you had to put your camera away. That was it, finished. Now with those Canons, they'll give you another hour or something. So quite amazing, really.
And today is student day. So there's lots of students here, people who are sort of setting out, if you like, on hopefully on a career in photography. I mean, would you ever recommend somebody taking the same path as a war photographer as you?
I wouldn't say war, because people ask me that question all the time. I would be inclined to dissuade them from doing that. And you know, the amount of people that have now got a taste of photography goes into hundreds of thousands. You know, and many of those people are not going to get a job, or they're not going to make it. I feel sorry for them, really. But you know, it's like I've always viewed it like this. It's like oil and water. Only the best will make it. It's because they deserve to be, if they're the best. And it doesn't mean to say that the people who don't make it in photography still can't practice it and enjoy it and record their family lives and history. So, frankly speaking, I welcome people loving photography. It makes me feel, that what I've done was the right thing in my case, and why shouldn't it be in their case, really? Photography is a very magical and wonderful thing, really. That's why you've got all these people here today.
Absolutely, it is. Photography is definitely a magical thing. Don McCullin, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you, and I know that people are kind of getting excited already up at the Super Stage to see you. So thank you for talking to me, and congratulations. Thank you.